Now podcast.
Demand for vaccinations is high. We still are not.
The expedition mapped more than 36.
The number of people experiencing homelessness doubled in 2020.
San Diego News Now. Find us and subscribe on your favorite podcast app.
The PBS NewsHour, putting questions to those in power.
We're in the fourth wave. There aren't enough tests. Is it time for a new approach?
Providing insight into big issues.
The speech in many ways sets the foundation for Democrats as they renew their push for voting rights.
Focusing on underreported issues.
What are these girls missing while their mothers are in prison that you're trying to help them get?
Weeknights on your PBS station and online.
Watch live or stream. Weeknights at 4 and 7 on KPBS. You're watching KPBS. Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, May 26th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Happening now, local students sending a message loud and clear to school officials and all who will listen. They're gathering right now at San Diego Unified District headquarters, rallying for mental health help. Today's action also follows local and nationwide walkouts. And our Kitty Alvarado live with the impact the recent school massacre is having on our campuses tonight. Kitty.
Good evening, Maya. You know, it's really moving to hear the students and just see dozens here gathered to get together, sharing their stories and demanding action for more resources and to be made more readily available to students. If you take a look behind me, we have a speaker now sharing his story about his struggles with mental health, and they are being so supportive. They want to send the message not only that they're not alone, but also they want administrators to make those resources more readily available and asking for more. They tell me that one high school has 3,000 students and only 9 counselors. And now today, this rally, it was not part of the larger protest for gun controls, they tell me, but they say they did change their message. They also just held a moment of silence for the victims to stand in solidarity with the victims of the massacre in Texas. But earlier today, students across San Diego County walked out to demand action and stand in solidarity with those victims.
Students at San Dieguito Academy High School walked out of class today to protest gun violence. They also honored the 19 students and 2 teachers who were killed by a lone gunman on Tuesday at a Texas elementary school. Those who participated in the walkout, like Joy Rupert, say they're scared this could happen at their schools.
Even though we weren't directly affected by this, we are still students and we are still staff who see this happening on the news and are worried that one day, and quite possibly with an open campus, that could happen to us.
Students at San Marcos High School participated too.
This is a really, really tough week, no question about it.
Superintendent Andy Johnson says they understand this is a difficult time for students. They allowed students to take time out of class to gather, share their feelings, and honor the victims.
The kids sat down in the quad. They had a couple of speakers who expressed their concerns, expressed their condolences for the victims in Texas, read the names of the victims, encouraged the kids to register to vote if they're of that age, and return to class. And it was very respectful and it was heartfelt, and I was very proud of the kids.
They weren't alone. Thousands of students across the country participated in the walkout. They were a part of the national event organized by Students Demand Action. The nonprofit is advocating for stronger gun control laws.
It's hard to process, honestly. I think we're all a little numb this week and hugging our kids real tight.
And now, if you take a look behind me, there's still more speakers, but right after this, they're going to march all the way around the school district offices. And these students are really brave to share their stories. They also tell me they want to destigmatize getting help and access to mental health. They really want to send that message that if you need help, to reach out, and it's really important to talk about it. But definitely, this was a day of action for students that are demanding change in a lot of aspects. They've been suffering in silence, many of them, not just because of the pandemic, but also because of all of these school shootings. Reporting live in San Diego, Kitty Alvarado, back to you in the studio.
Thanks for that report, Kitty. The small community of Uvalde, Texas is still reeling from that horrific attack, and as parents get ready to plan funerals for their children, new information is coming out about the deadly shooting. More now from reporter Chris Nguyen.
Today would have been the last day of the school year for students here at Robb Elementary. Instead, they are mourning the loss of some of their own. This as more questions emerge over the security response to the shooting. The agony of parents waiting outside of Robb Elementary, pleading for police to go inside as authorities say a gunman barricaded himself inside of the school Tuesday.
He walked in unobstructed initially. So from the grandmother's house to the bar ditch to the school, into the school, he was not confronted by anybody. Inside, nearly an hour of sheer terror as students and staff hid.
We were all hiding behind the stage in the cafeteria when it happened.
The gunman shot and killed 19 students and 2 teachers in a single 4th grade class. Among the victims, 10-year-old A-Marie Jo Garza, whose father said she was trying to call for help when she was shot.
I just want people to know that she just died trying to save her classmates. She just wanted to save everyone.
Many questions remain about how this man was able to get inside the school and the red flags that could have been raised prior to the shooting, including text messages to a teenage girl where he writes, "I'm a go shoot up a elementary school right now."
Why did he do this? Who is this man? The suspect. We're going to find out.
Meanwhile, outside the school, a growing memorial as Uvalde tries to heal from the pain. Officials are still trying to piece together a complete timeline of what happened at the school behind me. Meanwhile, the school district has already announced its plans to postpone its high school graduation, which was scheduled for tomorrow. Reporting here in Texas, I'm Chris Nguyen. Back to you.
And news of the school shooting is triggering fear and worry in many children. Coming up on Evening Edition, experts weigh in on how best to talk to kids about it. This just in, San Diego County is reporting a spike in COVID case numbers ahead of the holiday weekend. 1,897 new infections and 4 deaths were reported today. Only Tuesday saw fewer than 1,000 new cases in the past week. County officials want you to know that if you get COVID, you can get treated for free. KPBS reporter John Carroll says there are many places around the county where treatment is available and you don't need insurance.
If you have symptoms and test positive for COVID, you should get treated right away, no matter what kind of test you took. In San Diego County, you've got options, not only with treatments, but also locations. 4 monoclonal antibody regional centers, or MARCs, are open in Vista, Claremont, Hillcrest, and Chula Vista.
We have the monoclonal antibodies that treat and prevent COVID infections. We have oral and intravenous antivirals. We also have the antiviral pill, Paxlovid. All of those are available. They are open. Our sites are open 7 days a week.
Despite an intense effort to vaccinate underserved populations, county health officials say people of color are still more likely to die from COVID. But no matter who you are, the treatments Nathan Fletcher talked about can not only lessen symptoms, they can save your life. Usually at news conferences, when you see people gathered behind the main speaker, they're there to show support, maybe answer a question. Today was different. Several of them here today have not only experience with getting infected, but also with getting treatment.
Headache, body aches, incredible.
Frank Parra is the chief of emergency services for National City. He knew what to do: get to a treatment center.
And on day 3, I got in for treatment and started to see vast improvement, 1 or 2, 3 days later.
Then, earlier this month, he got COVID again, but with much milder symptoms. He got another monoclonal infusion and went home.
And for the next 3 days, probably had just mild cold and minor flu symptoms, but recovered and did very well.
Again, if you feel any symptoms, even a scratchy throat, get tested. If the test is positive, make an appointment at one of the centers by calling 619-685-2500. Again, all treatment is free. It doesn't matter if you're undocumented or if you don't have insurance. John Carroll, KPBS News.
The CDC has issued a travel advisory as monkeypox cases are being reported around the world, including here in the U.S. As of yesterday, 9 monkeypox cases have been identified in 7 states, with California among them. Health officials are advising travelers to avoid close contact with sick people and wild animals. While the CDC says the risk to the public is low, people should be aware of unexplained rashes. Weather in the air or on the road today is one of the busiest days for traveling all year. 75,000 passengers are expected to pass through San Diego International Airport this weekend alone. With construction for the airport's new Terminal 1, airport staff are recommending travelers come 2 hours early since there will be limited parking. And 58% of travelers will be on the road this summer. Their biggest challenge? Gas prices.
I think we all kind of sit here wishfully thinking that we could go back to when gas prices were $3 and $4 a gallon, and how cheap that seems now. But yeah, it's going to be a bumpy ride, and I'm afraid it's going to be painful for potentially the rest of the year and into next year as well.
Gas Buddy also suggests slowing down on the road and signing up for loyalty programs for savings. The ongoing fight for women's equality is the focus of a new museum in Southeast San Diego. KPBS Big City Heights reporter Jacob Ayer went to the Jacobs Center for Innovation, where the museum will have its new home.
The textiles on the inside, which I think...
The Women's Museum of California is set to open its new Southeast San Diego location in early June, after closing their previous Liberty Station site during the pandemic. According to Executive Director Felicia Shaw, this is not your mother's museum.
This is a very interactive space. You're not expected to come and stand in front of some walls and walls of text and didactics. What you're expected to do is roll up your sleeves and find your place in this work. Ask yourself questions, do things, activities.
The space provides a history lesson of the barriers women have faced and their victories, like the right to vote and greater equality in the workplace. Artistic director Katie Ruiz says the museum also showcases artwork from local women and is a place for the community to come together.
I really wanted to bring in local artists who are doing community projects and creating textile art that is activist or feminist in nature. And so all of the works that you see in this show were created by local artists in the region.
Ruiz says the museum is using a bilingual approach to connect with a more diverse group of San Diegans. Regardless of language, she wants people to understand that activism comes in many forms.
I think that people think activism has to be marching in the streets, where it doesn't necessarily have to be. It can be making an artwork, it can be making a poster, it can be talking to someone and helping educate someone else. It can be coming to a space like this and learning. All of those things are activism.
Shaw says they're making it accessible for all community members to come explore the museum.
Because we are new to the community, we offered free memberships to everyone within the 5 zip codes of the southeastern community. And so that's a benefit that, hey, not just come, but become a member of our organization for entirely free.
The Women's Center will open June 4th. Shaw says the museum will be open to the public on the 3rd day of every month. Most other days will require an appointment. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
A report by an advocacy group has uncovered that millions of students have been unknowingly tracked during the height of the COVID pandemic when they were learning remotely. And in some cases, the educational apps and websites tracked them without their consent, then shared their information with third-party advertising companies like Google and Facebook. Human Rights Watch looked into 164 online learning tools and found that nearly 90% of them had data practices that risked children's rights. The Federal Trade Commission Commission announced plans last week to crack down on companies that illegally track children during online learning. The images and the stories from the mass shooting at a Texas elementary school are difficult to watch and hear, especially for children. But how do parents talk to their kids about it? Jen Sullivan got advice from a clinical psychologist.
The images are difficult for anyone, but the school shooting in Uvalde, Texas may cause fear and worry in small children who see or hear about it. When talking to them, make them feel safe. Licensed clinical psychologist Marisa Azarat says parents should first assess their own feelings.
Is it anger? Is it despair? Is it a serious anxiety, a severe anxiety? Once you do that, try to find some balance and then address your child.
Azarat says kids of any age can be bothered by what they're seeing. The images can show up in nightmares and night terrors. She recommends monitoring what children see. If they're too young, turn off the TV to guard against those disturbing images. Experts say when they see the same story, they may think the disaster is happening again and again.
You might see regression. Children that were already toilet trained, for example, they are regressing. Children that were sleeping alone in their bedroom, they might regress and not being able to do so. So we need to be patient.
If they're older, you may want to limit their time watching the news or on the internet. Azarat says asking questions and talking to children about their worries and concerns can help them get back on track emotionally.
Talking to them at their level in a concrete way, reassuring them, telling them that mom is here, that dad is here.
Reassure children that adults in schools work hard to keep them safe. She says all children need extra support and love right now. For Health Minute, I'm Jen Sullivan.
Outdoor water use will soon be even more restricted for people living in Los Angeles. The LA City Council approved the move into Phase 3 of the city's emergency water conservation ordinance. Residents are now allowed to water outdoors just twice a week, down from 3 days a week. This week, State Water Board officials approved rules that ratchet down residential water use and keep commercial customers from watering ornamental lawns. Both the LA ordinance and state rules take effect on June 1st.
A developing area of low pressure is going to bring some cooler weather over the next few days. Strong winds are still going to be around in the passes and in the mountains. The good news, the holiday looks nice itself, but it will be on the cooler side. So temperatures tonight along the coastal areas, lots of clouds across the region, keeping us in the 50s and lower 60s across San Diego and across the county, more interior. Ramona dropping down to 49 degrees where you have those clear skies. El Cajon dropping down to 56, Borrego Springs 70, Mount Laguna dropping down to 60, and Campo you're dropping down to 50 degrees. It's quite warm. That will continue across your Friday for the interior. There's that cold front that we're speaking of, cooler air back behind it, and you will have a strong onshore flow. So those low-level clouds in those evening hours and into those early morning hours will stick around. They'll also keep things on the cooler side. You can see them across the morning. They burn off a little bit by the lunch hour in the afternoon, so you do get some sunshine, but notice how in those evening hours they start to work their way back on shore, more interior areas, Oceanside, Ramona. You could even see some showers or some clouds rather late Friday evening. So again, throughout the day where you do get some sunshine and some mix of sun and clouds, triple digits for Borrego Springs, Mount Laguna 69. Notice you keep it the 60s from Oceanside to San Diego down to Chula Vista, and you're looking at El Cajon at 76, Ramona in the 70s as well. Saturday, it's a strong cold front that progresses even more to the south. You still have an onshore flow back behind it and some cooler weather. So here you go. The clouds may break for your Friday around the coast, but again, you're sticking with the 60s until you get to next week. Tuesday, 70s back in the forecast. Inland, it's some 70s back to the 80s by next Tuesday. So it's going to be a while till we get that warming trend even into the mountains. It's a little cooler, high temperatures in those 50s and mid 50s for your Monday, cold with some sunshine. And you get a break from the triple digit heat, even 80s for the highs in the desert areas by Monday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Michelle Rotella.
A startup company in San Diego is creating artificial limbs with a 3D printer. They say their digital system can be cheaper, faster way to customize prosthetics. KPBS Science and Technology reporter Thomas Fudge has the story.
Patients seeking care at an Ensenada hospital have lost limbs in many different circumstances, mostly through traumatic accidents or diabetes. And now they're getting artificial limbs that are made by a 3D printer from a startup company called Limber P&O.
This is the Limber Unileg. It is a single-piece prosthesis that is 3D printed in just half of a day. So you press start at the night, and you pull it off looking just like this in the morning, ready to go onto an amputee, allowing them to get back out into the world.
Joshua Pels is a PhD student of engineering at UC San Diego and a co-founder of Limber P&O. The company's artificial limbs are printed at a lab on the UCSD campus. He says their process begins with a scan of the lower body using an iPhone with Face ID.
We scan the patient from waist down. We take that scan data, we bring it in as a three-dimensional 3D model into the computer, and we basically build the whole prosthetic device around that scan data.
Another co-founder of Limber P&O is Herb Barrick, a prosthetist who's been creating artificial limbs for decades. Many years ago, he carved them out of balsa wood by hand. He says 3D printers bring a huge advantage to the creation of prosthetics.
It's precision. The 3D printer, the digital process allows us to be very exact. The digital scanner allows us to duplicate alignment.
One amputee who has used an artificial leg from the Limber company is Diana Zambrano, who lost her lower right leg in a traffic accident. She says using a new prosthetic limb is kind of like putting on new shoes. They don't always feel or fit right.
In this case, the Limber leg, I don't know if it's the technology or what it is, but the minute I wore it, I was able to walk very comfortably and wear it, for extended periods of time.
So far, the company is focused on creating artificial lower legs below the knee. But Pels says printing the knee joint is in the company's future. Limber P&O has had financial help from Rotary clubs in the U.S. and Mexico who have funded the provision of artificial legs for patients in Ensenada. Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, a survivor of the 2018 Parkland school shooting speaks out about this latest mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Memorial Day is this Monday, and it is a day to remember those who died in the line of duty. Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia is the final resting place for approximately 400,000 service members and their eligible family members. Part of the Memorial Day tradition is to place flags at their grave sites, and today 1,000 service members did just that. Many branches of military assisted in the effort, placing thousands of flags to honor the fallen. Faced with a tight job market, the Navy is banking that Top Gun can help rescue naval aviation from a pilot shortage 36 years after the original film broke recruiting records. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh says it's part of a long relationship between Hollywood and the military.
On a sunny day at a Navy base near San Diego, Tom Cruise was on message.
It's a celebration of the Navy. It's a celebration of aviation. It's a celebration of the spirit, I think, of our country.
Tom Cruise was at Naval Air Station North Island for the premiere of Top Gun Maverick. Several scenes were shot at the base. Surrounded by sailors in front of the base theater, Cruise worked the red carpet. The megastar said he shares the Navy's high hopes for the long-awaited sequel.
Eyes on me.
Paramount paid the Navy more than $5 million. Much of the money was spent to retrofit real F-18 Super Hornets with cameras. Real Navy pilots do the flying, putting actors and the audience in the cockpit. It's part of a long tradition of Hollywood working with the military. Nick Cull teaches media and history at USC.
On the Pentagon side of things, they wanted to have the best of the U.S. military represented. And they knew that if filmmakers wanted to have tanks and aircraft carriers and aircraft featuring in their movies, they would be willing to concede certain aspects of creative input.
Though it can be tough for the Pentagon to live up to the Hollywood hype, Cull says.
Why can't we succeed in Iraq or Afghanistan? The difficulties of operating in these kinds of situations are underestimated when we have these fantasies of exaggerated competence.
I do think that the country knows that they're going to see a movie and they can make their own judgments.
Bob Newell directs the Navy's program that works with the entertainment industry. He says the Navy reviews the script to see if it upholds the values of the service, realizing fewer people have a direct connection to the military.
That has started to wane, and so people don't have, and communities don't have, those connections that they used to. Everybody can't go out to an aircraft carrier, but everybody can go to a movie theater.
And the Navy could use a hit right now. The original film is legendary among Navy recruiters, driving up interest in naval aviation 10 years after Vietnam. Captain Kevin Ferguson was the Navy's technical advisor on the Top Gun sequel. Standing in front of an F-18 on North Island, he admits he became a pilot after seeing the original film in the 1980s. Ferguson flies for both the reserves as well as Delta Airlines. Commercial aviation has always drawn military pilots, and the competition for pilots, he says, is heating up.
You have to retire at age 65, so you do the math, you got a lot of people that are falling off the cliff there. The airlines, all of them, did not necessarily plan in advance, and then COVID hit, and a lot of people, took early retirements and left. What we're left with now is a massive resurgence in travel demand and not enough people to fill it.
Outside the premiere, a group of young sailors were waiting for the filmmakers. Some of them admitted they either hadn't seen the original or had watched it the night before. Seaman recruit Charles Poindexter used to watch the film with his dad as a kid.
My dad, he was excited. Oh, man, you about to go see Tom Cruise? I was like, yeah, me and my dad, we played about it a little bit. It's like, oh, that's my favorite actor. I got to get some pictures, get a whole lot of pictures.
Whether at the box office or the recruiter's office, we'll know soon enough whether the franchise can handle one last mission. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
And here's another look at today's top stories. Students across the country and here in San Diego staged walkouts to demand action after the mass shooting at an elementary school in Texas. San Diego Academy High School and San Marcos High School students were among those who participated. The national event was organized by Students Demand Action, a nonprofit advocating for stronger gun control laws. And if you get COVID, you can get treated for free. That's the word county officials are putting out as COVID cases rise. 4 monoclonal antibody regional centers are open in Vista, Claremont, Hillcrest, and Chula Vista. If you feel any symptoms, even if they're mild, you are urged to get tested. And you can find details on our website, kpbs.org. And you can also find stories on our website. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.
There'd been a long history of heavy-handed policing and police violence.
From the murder of George Floyd to the trial of Derek Chauvin.
It's not part of our training, and it is certainly not part of our ethics or our values.
And the struggle for accountability.
Frontline, Tuesday at 10 on KPBS.
Today is Thank You Thursday. We would like to take a moment to thank our